again. It's me, Gabriella Kovács from the International Language Coaching Association. This is part 3 in a 5-part mini-series aiming to help you understand more what language coaching in our interpretation is. And hopefully each part addresses something which is of interest for you. So we're halfway on our journey here. So we'll be looking at the differences between teacher and coach and how they are different, and in their differences, how they complement each other. So very exciting trip for today. Let's have a look a little bit at our recap. In the first 2 parts, we looked at what the actual definition of language coaching is, what language coaching is about, how it supports the learner by allowing them to be in the driver's seat, which is a completely different approach to language learning compared to teaching. And what we need to understand is that we're looking at how to support them in a psychologically safe way, how they can understand, be more aware of who they are as language learners, and create a strong version of themselves that's going to be more confident, more motivated, and of course more competent in learning and using the language, communicating. So let's move on and have a look at what the differences are and the similarities. Of course, what we always need to understand is that there's always going to be a different setting for each and every learner. They're going to be different approaches, different ways of thinking that they have, their learning histories, the environment in which they are learning, and their goals and their needs and their expectations, etc. So there's always a lot going on, a lot that's actually on the table, but we don't always necessarily see it or deal with it or feel that it's our job, our responsibility, our role to be interacting with these elements. Okay, so just to be clear, we need to understand that we are aware of whether we should be in coach mode or in teaching mode. So hopefully this series gives you a little bit more insight for you to decide whether you want to be applying coaching, if you think it's complete hogwash, or whether you believe that teaching is your path and coaching is for somebody else. Okay, so first of all, we're going to compare, and obviously, again, stop me talking here and just have a good read through. I'm not going to be adding too much extra to what we have here. So the teacher, as you well know, is looking at a curriculum, a set of plans, lesson plans, working with them, getting through them lesson by lesson, week by week, month by month, etc. And basically working through a checklist, right? This is what I have to go through, whether you're using a textbook or not, you're using your own materials or you're getting AI to help you to put together certain elements of the teaching materials that you want to be using. You're going to be much more directive, and you're going to be trying to guide and instruct and inform the learner so they can achieve usually academic or some other sort of the success. You might be in BELF or ESL, a number of different scenarios which work with teaching. On the other side, if we look at coaching, we're not working with a set curriculum, which can be quite frightening and quite negatively viewed by a number of teachers. I've had a lot of conversations with teachers who say, but then how do you know what you're going to do? Well, we work with, on the one hand, our own expertise. Yes, we do have to be so without that, we're not necessarily going to be successful language coaches because we don't actually know how to be thinking so that the learner can move forward. Okay, but When we're coaching, we're not teaching, right? So what we're looking at is we want to help them to be more self-aware, to understand what is blocking them, what's holding them back, what kind of strengths they can work with, how they can move forward. And then they can get down to actually learning, either with a teacher or with ourselves. The responsibility is with the learner. We take our professional responsibility to support them on their journey, but they have to take the steps. They have to put the work in, right? We don't use directive methods. We use active listening, asking powerful questions, okay? And we help them to reflect and self-correct in the sense that they want to then revise perhaps or rethink what they're actually doing, how they want to get to their goals. We see the learner as a whole. They are fine. They're not defect. They're not, struggling because they can't do it. But we open up a lot of ideas for them so that they simply have the time and space to consider what is it that they're doing, how they want to get there. And this sounds like, oh yeah, of course, but it is quite a lot of work, very rewarding for the learner. So we want them to be clear on what they want to do and how they want to reach it. And then they can actually start the learning, as I said. So moving on, how do we measure success? Obviously in teaching, it's much easier. There are the rubrics, there are a lot of tests and assessments that we can be working with. There are a number of benchmarks. And when the learner passes those marks or gets a certain percentage, etc., we would say that our work has been successful. For a language coach, it's much more of an external metric, if you will. We're looking at, how confident the learner is. We're looking much more at a subjective way of understanding learner development, in that they're more clearer on what they want to achieve. They're going to be saying things like, on a scale of 1 to 10, I've moved forward in clarity, in confidence, in gaining understanding of who I am as a language learner, etc. So the way that we assess is going to be completely different to compared to in teaching. So the question always is whether one or the other is better. And let's just clarify this. I can't say this enough, right? But it's not about coaching versus teaching. There's no such thing as coaching is better than teaching. We can apply both in different situations. They complement each other. If we had like a Venn diagram, there would be a large overlap, but there are situations when one is better than the other. But as such, coaching is not better than teaching. Teaching is not better than coaching. It's simply when to apply them. Can you blend them? Yes, you can. There is such a thing as coaching approach teaching, coaching approach training. I do that a lot. I think it's very important to understand when you can apply coaching in a teaching or training process. What is really important is that we recognize the flexibility of coaching. And it doesn't mean that we look at the learner as some kind of superhero who's there and they're going to, they're going to make progress and it's going to be so fantastic and wonderful. But we do offer them time and space, as I said earlier, to articulate what is going on for them. And through that, they gain their strength. Their identity becomes stronger as a language learner. And simply by giving them the flexibility of maybe even stumbling through some ideas, but recognizing it's all coming from them. It's not me as a coach telling them what to do, but they kind of get through this phase of feeling a bit lost to being very, very clear on what they want. And that's extremely, extremely empowering. And that is where their superhero strength lies. So it's sort of a balancing act. What we want to understand is that we do use the teaching expertise, but we also use the coaching, and that's what's going to be transformative in the learning that our clients, our learners will be experiencing. We want to be looking at their intrinsic motivation that comes from inside, and pair that up with the strategizing strength of coaching so that they can take action, and that's what's going to help them have some sort of sustainable progress in the process of learning. And we always offer very strong safety, no judgment, no advice, and that's going to bring their confidence really, really high up, whatever scale you might be measuring that on. And how can we use it? We use it with teams, with groups, with one-to-ones. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is that they support, the peers are going to start supporting each other, which is very important. Often in classrooms, when I was mentoring a few years ago, I experienced that, of course, with the teachers that I work with. I hear that a lot, that there's a lot of competition. That's how things, okay, who's first? Who's got more points? Who's doing this? We're building them up towards success only being the very top, either with the grades, percentages, but also in comparing learners to each other, which is not good. And it doesn't have to be teaching, it can be in training, it can be a number of areas in life where competition rules. And coaching completely, a coaching mindset from the teacher or trainer can remove that and bring in sharing, understanding, listening to each other, encouraging, supporting. Recently, I was working with a group of adults at a multinational company, and they were so surprised at the positive atmosphere. They were truly engaged in listening to each other, and they said that it was so nice to be listening for the sake of understanding and bettering themselves and each other. So that was a very, very nice sort of feedback to receive, and it can happen in your classes also. So get in touch with us. Thank you very much for listening to this short video, and we'll be moving on in part 4 and part 5 into other areas of how language coaching can support you. And if you want to get in touch with the International Language Coaching Association, here's our information, here's where you can get in touch with us. And I do hope that you're going to hear from us very, very soon. Thank you very much. And bye-bye for now.